If you're a millennial, you're told you're supposed to have it all. Instead, you're working harder, earning less, and still falling behind every year. So, why is this generation stuck in crisis mode? Millennials, born between 1980 and 1996, grew up with baby boomer parents, which meant hearing a lot about the good old days. Boomers came of age when the country was only going one direction. Up, hard work paid off, and the American dream felt real. So, as the 90s boomed, the future looked bright. All millennials had to do was work hard, get a degree, find a good job, and then settle down. Sure, the 90s had hiccups, but nothing seemed to threaten that feeling of invincibility. It was the perfect setup for a brutal surprise. The 2000s were supposed to be the dawn of endless opportunity, especially with the booming internet age. Millennials were walking into a perfect world, until they weren't. On one Tuesday morning, everything changed. The 9/11 terror attacks didn't just destroy the Twin Towers. They destroyed America's sense of invulnerability. This was the first major attack on U.S. soil since World War II, and fear crept into everything. Crowds felt risky. Travel felt hostile. The stock market tanked. The economy froze, and panic hit hard. While the country slowly recovered, millennials didn't. They stepped into adulthood right into the wreckage. The economic slowdown meant companies, especially in New York, stopped hiring. It is estimated that New York City alone lost $2.8 billion in wages in just the first 3 months. For many young people, opportunities vanished, never to return. This crisis, a mix of patriotic fervor and disappearing jobs, pushed many toward enlistment. But the long wars in Iraq and Afghanistan left countless soldiers dead or injured, and trust in the government eroded after other crises, like the botched Hurricane Katrina response. But the worst was yet to come. As the Bush administration entered its final year, the economy had become increasingly digital. Startups raised billions, and the Dow Jones shot up. Working in finance was a high-stakes game that could make you a fortune. And then, in 2008, it all came crashing down. The housing bubble burst, major banks collapsed, and the entire system unraveled. It was the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. The collapse caused a panic, but thanks to government safeguards put in place after the 19th, like insured bank deposits, the damage wasn't as severe. Still, when multiple banks and countless businesses failed, the system buckled, putting millions out of work. For millennials, it was a body blow. This is widely seen as the crisis that did the most damage. They graduated into a job market where no one was hiring. Degrees didn't matter. Experience didn't matter. Good jobs vanished overnight, and so did the future they thought they were building. This led to the Great Homecoming. Many millennials either moved back in with their parents, or just never left. The oldest, approaching 30, saw their dreams of buying a home evaporate as prices skyrocketed and loans dried up. Younger millennials took whatever job they could get, which often meant a master's degree holder work in retail or fast food. This earned them the title of the failure-to-launch generation, with many living with their parents well into their 30s. Those who did move out often struggled, cramming into small apartments with roommates. Major life milestones, like starting a family, were put on hold indefinitely. As the 2010s rolled on, the economy still hadn't fully recovered. It became clear that some things just weren't coming back. Companies that survived never staffed up to their old levels, and housing prices kept climbing. The opportunities millennials needed just weren't there. By 2019, millennials were adapting. Instead of a steady job for decades, many embraced gig work, piecing together a living from several jobs. It lacked benefits, but offered a new kind of freedom. They were on the struggle bus, but they were managing. And just when they thought nothing worse could happen, the pandemic shattered what little stability they had left. Jobs disappeared, industries collapsed, and the world changed in an instant. Remote work helped some, but for many, it was another derailed life milestone. Millennials did have one advantage. They were the first generation to grow up with computers, and were well equipped for the remote era. They quickly adapted to working from home, and their experience with AP-based gigs made them the core of the workforce that kept things running, delivering food, and driving for rides. But it was just another delay. The pandemic didn't just cause a devastating loss of life, it also triggered a massive market crash. In 2020, global commerce dropped 7%, and by April, over 20 million Americans were unemployed. Many of those jobs never came back. It was yet another crisis for a generation that has never known a world without one. The year is 2020. The world shuts down. For millennials, it's just another once-in-a-lifetime crisis. Many found themselves working from home or furloughed entirely. Vaccines rolled out, and people hoped for a return to normal, but it was not to be. Businesses got bailouts, but it wasn't enough to save them all. Iconic chains disappeared, small businesses faded away. Companies came back with smaller workforces, outsourcing jobs or combining positions. And right then, new competition arrived. Gen Z, fresh out of school, entered a chaotic world. They also didn't understand. Millennials were already behind, and now they were in danger of being lapped. The kind of success their parents had seems more out of reach every year. The oldest millennials are already approaching middle age, which means they're thinking about their kids' college funds and their own retirement, all of which seems further away than ever. Millennials are a bridge generation. They saw the end of an analog world and grew up in a digital one. They remember TVS that lasted decades. Now, everything is a subscription. Entertainment, security, even each tiny bill eats away at what little financial progress they make, and the prices just keep going up. There hasn't been another huge crash since 2020, but things haven't calmed down. Inflation has been soaring, hitting not just luxury goods, but everyday necessities. Forget owning a house. Many millennials are wondering how they'll afford their next carton of eggs. Then came a self-inflicted crisis in 2025. Prices on imported goods skyrocketed. Small businesses that depended on foreign supplies started to shut down. Even the morning cup of coffee was in danger, until the tariffs were removed. It feels less like a ladder and more like a roller coaster. Millennials hold an unpleasant distinction. They are the first generation projected to be worse off than their parents. They've struggled to reach the financial success of boomers or even Gen X. They benefit when the economy improves, but every new crisis sets them back even further. They're not climbing a ladder. They're renting the illusion of one, month by month, at increasing rates. Part of the problem is debt. Millennials carry far more of it than previous generations, much of it from things they were told would guarantee success, like a college degree. Many have been paying off student loans for decades, only to see the balance grow due to interest. That money isn't going toward a down payment on a house. The housing market has been brutal since 2008. Only about 55% of millennials own homes, far below previous generations at the same age. And the competition gets more intense as Gen Z enters the same market. It feels systemic, not just bad luck. They graduated into major global crises and economic downturns. Every time they start to get their footing, the ground shakes again. And now, a new threat looms. AI. 4 years ago, AI chatbots were experimental. Now, they're unavoidable. Jobs that once seemed safe, like creative arts or even data analysis, now look replaceable by a line of code. The path to a steady, boring office job is disappearing. This pushes more people into a few technology-proof fields like medicine or skilled trades, making competition fierce. For a while, millennials were seen as too young to trust. Now, they might be too old. The old path of getting an entry-level job and slowly climbing the ladder is gone. Today, you're either underqualified or overqualified. Millennials send out hundreds of applications and hear nothing back. Entry-level jobs demand years of experience. It feels like the clock is ticking down. They're not just struggling to make ends meet. They're watching the ends get further apart. It feels like Groundhog Day. High entry bars for everything. A job, a house, a loan. Many have put off marriage and family, waiting for a stability that may never come. They were promised a future that never arrived. For millennials, it hasn't just been bad luck. It's been a lifetime of climbing a ladder that was never really there. Now go watch our video on Every Generation Explained to find out the real differences. Thanks for watching.